India welcomes stronger trade with Burkina Faso, especially in premium cashew and cocoa. We value Burkina Faso's organic quality and see great potential in supplying our booming snack and chocolate industries. This partnership promises mutual growth, linking West African farmers to India's expanding consumer market.
What if I told you that one signature in Ouagadougou could change the way Africa trades with the world forever? What if a deal not with Paris, not with Washington, but with New Delhi marked the beginning of a trade era where Africa sets the terms and the world listens? This is not a story about aid. This is not another tale of exploitation. This is about power, economic power being reclaimed by the very hands that grow Africa's most treasured crops. Welcome to Afrique Vibe News. Today we take you deep inside a deal that is shaking the foundations of global agriculture, the historic cocoa and cashew agreement between Burkina Faso's revolutionary leader Ibrahim and the Republic of India. For decades, Africa's cocoa and cashew industries have been trapped in a cycle: export raw beans, watch the profits disappear overseas, and buy back processed goods at double or triple the price. But now, the game is changing. In 2025, Burkina Faso, a landlocked West African nation, stood up and said, "No more." And India answered the call, not with charity, but with a partnership designed to break the chains of economic dependence. This is the story of how Ibrahim, a leader hailed by millions as the face of Africa's new independence movement, just set a precedent that could transform the entire continent's trade future. Cue upbeat African instrumental music fading into the main story. Cocoa, cashews, two humble crops, yet they shape economies, employ millions, and influence international trade flows worth billions of dollars. Globally, West Africa produces about 70% of the world's cocoa, the essential ingredient in chocolate, a product with an annual market value exceeding $140 billion USD. Yet, only a fraction of that revenue stays in Africa. Most of the profit is captured by companies in Europe and North America that process the beans into chocolate bars, cocoa powder, and confectionery products. Cashews follow the same story. Africa now grows over 55% of the world's raw cashew nuts, with countries like Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria, and Burkina Faso among the leading producers. The global cashew market is worth around $7.5 billion USD, but over 80% of African cashews are exported raw, mainly to India and Vietnam, for processing. Why does this matter? Because processing is where the money is made. When cocoa beans are turned into chocolate, their value can multiply fivefold. When raw cashews are shelled, roasted, and packaged, their price can double or triple. But for decades, Africa's agricultural sector has been trapped in a colonial-era economic model, supplying raw goods cheaply and importing expensive finished products. In Burkina Faso, where more than 80% of the population relies on agriculture, this system has meant low incomes for farmers, little industrial growth, and high vulnerability to global price swings. This is the cycle Ibrahim wants to break, and cocoa and cashews are his opening move. The seeds of this landmark agreement were sown in early 2024. India, a rising economic powerhouse, has been seeking to secure long-term supplies of agricultural commodities to meet the demands of its 1.4 billion citizens. With a rapidly growing middle class and an expanding confectionery industry, its demand for cocoa has skyrocketed. Cashews, already a household snack staple in India, have seen consistent double-digit consumption growth. Burkina Faso, meanwhile, was actively searching for trade partners who could bypass the traditional colonial trade networks and engage on equal terms. 4. The goal was not just to find a buyer, but to find a partner willing to invest in local value addition. Negotiations between Ouagadougou and New Delhi lasted months. Delegations moved back and forth. Agricultural experts inspected plantations in Burkina Faso, and trade officials visited processing facilities in India's Goa and Kerala states. The final agreement includes value, estimated $600 million USD in the first 5 years. Products, both raw and semi-processed cocoa and cashews. Processing clause. At least 40% of the cocoa and cashews will be processed inside Burkina Faso, before export, ensuring local job creation. Technology transfer. India will supply modern processing machinery and train technicians to operate and maintain them, tariff reductions, preferential market access for products in India, infrastructure support, assistance in upgrading storage facilities and transport logistics to reduce post-harvest losses. This is not a charity deal. It is a strategic partnership that gives Burkina Faso leverage, ensures fairer trade terms, and promotes industrial growth. To understand the impact, you have to look at the commodity trap, the vicious cycle that has kept African economies dependent for decades. In the old model, African farmers sell raw goods at low prices. Foreign companies process them abroad. African consumers buy back the finished products at inflated prices. This creates three major problems: job loss. Processing jobs are created abroad, not in Africa. Valued rain. Most profits leave the continent. Economic instability. Dependence on raw exports makes economies vulnerable to global price drops. By building processing capacity inside Burkina Faso, the India deal attacks all three problems. It means thousands of new jobs in processing, packaging, and quality control, higher incomes for farmers who supply semi-processed goods, more economic resilience because value is retained locally if replicated across the continent. This could be a blueprint for African trade independence. India's involvement is strategic. By partnering directly with Burkina Faso, India secures a reliable supply chain for cocoa and cashews. Diversification away from reliance on a few supplier nations. Political capital in Africa, strengthening South-South cooperation. India also stands to gain in its global image. In a world where African countries are increasingly wary of Western trade dominance, India's approach, focusing on mutual benefit and technology sharing, positions it as a friend rather than a new master. In Bobo Dioulasso, the heart of Burkina Faso's Cashew belt, excitement is palpable. Farmer Moussa Diallo told Afrique Vibe News, "For years, we've sold our nuts at prices that barely feed our families. If this deal means processing here, it could change our future." Processing plant owner Fatoumata added, "The Indian machines will triple our output. We can finally compete with the big exporters. Even young entrepreneurs are eyeing opportunities." Abdoulaye, a 27-year-old business graduate, said, "This is our chance to start packaging chocolate for the world, not just raw beans finished, branded products." Reactions have been swift. In Paris, trade officials issued cautious statements about long-term sustainability. Diplomatics speak for concern over losing market share. In Brussels, EU agricultural lobbies warned that Africa's pivot to non-traditional partners could reshape global commodity flows. Across West Africa, however, leaders from Ghana to Nigeria are expressing interest in similar partnerships. The idea of cutting out exploitative middlemen is gaining momentum. This agreement aligns perfectly with the African Continental Free Trade Area (AFTA) vision, a single continental market for goods and services. Imagine, Ghana processes cocoa and trades directly with Kenya. Nigeria processes cashews and exports to Ethiopia. Burkina Faso ships finished chocolate to South Africa. If African nations start demanding processing clauses in all export deals, the continent could keep billions of dollars in added value at home every year. The road won't be easy. Infrastructure gaps in transport and electricity could slow factory expansion. Commodity price volatility could impact profits. Corruption risks could derail fair distribution of benefits. But the deal includes monitoring mechanisms, annual reviews, and transparent reporting safeguards designed to keep both parties accountable. In the story of Africa's fight for economic independence, this may be just one chapter, but it's a chapter written boldly. Ibrahim's cocoa and cashew deal with India is about more than crops. It's about dignity, self-determination, and the power to shape Africa's economic destiny. And here at Afrique Vibe News, we will continue to follow these stories, the stories that matter, the stories that change the narrative of Africa in the world. This is more than trade. This is Africa's new era.